This is a Stock Trading Reality Podcast, episode 201.
And so I never looked at the stock market growing up as something that somebody like me could be involved in. Rich people who lived in New York City, that's what they did, you know.
This is the Stock Trading Reality Podcast, where you get to see the realistic side of a trader's journey. Get inspired and stay motivated by everyday normal people who are currently on their journey to trading success. And this is your host. He has hiked the Rocky Mountains with fellow members, Clay Trader.
Yeah, that is right. And a kind of a funny story with this. Went out to Denver for a meetup. And ironically enough, that actually comes up in the interview we're about to have. But went out there. Colorado as a whole, great state. Came back home. We're like, oh, let's get back out to Colorado. Went back out there, but this time people were talking about this thing called the incline. And I was like, okay, it's supposed to be big. It's supposed to be pretty intense. But my thinking was, well, here in West Michigan, we have pretty massive sand dunes. More so, you get up more northern Michigan, but there's big sand dunes. And the problem with big sand in general is, it gives away. So you take like 10 steps, but of those 10, you give back like 4 of them. So yeah, you're making progress, but it's very excruciating progress, and it plays with your mind in the sense of, am I making progress? So anyways, the point of all that was I was kind of going into this incline thing thinking, I don't know. I've done some pretty big sand dunes. I've been able to push through those. So, how difficult can this be? Because there's steps. So nothing is giving way, and I'm going to have steps the whole way up. But essentially what the incline is that I'm going to hear it from the Colorado members. I'm going to screw this up, but it's like in the distance of a mile going up, you gain like 5,000 feet of elevation. Maybe that could be a total lie. Anyways, it's intense. And in comparison with sand dunes, if I'm being totally honest, I'd probably have to give the advantage in terms of difficulty to the incline, because with the elevation and just how big and how high it was probably a little bit harder than those sand dunes. And it pains me to say it, given I want to say that the sand dunes were more complicated. But yeah, if you are in Colorado, look up the incline. Hopefully I get this right. It's not in Colorado Springs. It's in Manitou Springs. And Manitou Springs is like a cool little city there. But yeah, check that out. And the incline is actually part of, if you were to hike up to Pikes Peak, you could do that as a portion of it, or take the more mild trail. But yeah, look, if you like outdoors, if you like to do some cardio, if you like to get your heart sweating, if you like to just get your mind, test your mental fortitude, then yeah, the incline is definitely going to test your mental toughness, if you will, because it is no joke. So today we have actually a two-parter. I'm hoping you saw the thumbnail. If you didn't, I'm telling you right now, we do have a two-part episode. Unfortunately, there was a couple logistics. We changed software on the back end with calendars, and there was just a couple mix-ups. And then on top of all of that, Ches, our esteemed co-host, is having internet issues. CenturyLink, I think he says he used. I believe their ticker symbol CTL, so maybe go short CTL. But they've been having internet issues, and he just wasn't able to join us, which is, I'm sure when he hears this, he's going to be kind of disappointed, because our guest, he got me fired up, and he's had a great story. And on that note, our guest is Brad in the chat room. For those of you that are members, he goes by Darb, D-A-R-B, and then the number 24. And I was not going into this expecting a two-parter, but the more he talked and the more I heard his story, it just got me fired up in the sense of, yeah, this isn't necessarily, attractive. It's not necessarily sexy in the sense of, oh, wow, yeah, this trading thing, that's what I want to do, puffing cigars. But it's very, very realistic, and it's very, very proper in the sense of, yeah, this is how you properly go about learning about the markets. This is how you properly go about learning and building and tweaking and fortifying a strategy. And you're going to see it's not really pretty, but what I also found fascinating, and what I also want you to keep in mind, is the personality traits here, the personality characteristics of just what's going on between Brad's ears, in his mind. Because as you'll learn, the guy is a hard worker. He doesn't come up with excuses. He's not carrying around victim cards, and he knows how to work hard. And that's what trading takes. It takes hard work. And I realize everybody says trading takes hard work. But what actually does quote unquote hard work look like? What does it actually come across as within the real world? And Brad is a shining example of what hard work looks like and what the trading journey really does look like. So if you are looking for somebody where at the end of this, he's going to be telling you that he's raking in hundreds of thousands of dollars per year and he's, driving around in fancy cars, then I'm going to respect your time. Go find some other podcast to listen to. But if you're somebody that's like, yeah, I do want to know the nitty gritty details. I do want to know a very dirty, I want to know a very just beast mode-ish, and I made that word up, type perspective on what this whole trading journey is going to look like if you want to do it the right way, then you're gonna get a lot out of this 2-part interview here. And there's a lot of nuggets of wisdom. Not necessarily wisdom from, well, he's been around forever doing this, but just wisdom from experience. And I've experienced the same thing, and I know a lot of other people have. So it's just little things that you can kind of pick up that you can keep an eye on as you go through your journey. But for this first, part of it, just keep in mind the mentality, the personality characteristics, kind of his viewpoint on life, how he goes about looking at a problem. Is he somebody that says, oh, I can't do that? Or does he look at it and say, how can I do that? And then, with part 2, we'll get more into his actual trading and all that sort of good stuff. But yeah, there is a whole lot of good stuff. So with that being said, let's sit down and hear from Brad in part 1. Brad, welcome to the show.
Hi, Clay. Thanks for having me.
Now, I think I'm right, but correct me if I'm wrong. You were supposed to, or you were planning on coming to the Denver meet and greet, but then something came up. Is that right, or am I confusing you with somebody else?
Right. No, that's correct. That was me.
Okay, and that was for the Denver meetup?
Yes, it was.
Okay, well, bummer that you couldn't. I just remember something came up and you couldn't make it, but yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, it was work related. I travel for work, and I was supposed to go on a job in Wyoming, and so I was going to be passing through right at that time that the meetup was going on, and ended up I wasn't going to go, and then ended up I did end up going anyway, but it was like a week after the meetup. So
Gotcha. And that segues perfectly into, I want to just extend you a thank you because like you just said, you do travel a lot for work. Are you okay if I say your profession?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so you're a welder, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's good stuff. A welder that travels the country, and the thank you comes into play where you actually are not traveling for this week, and the week that Brad and I are recording this is that week between Christmas and New Year's. So in other words, Brad, you're taking time out of your schedule where you actually don't have to travel or anything, and you're going to hang out with a bozo like me. So I thank you for taking time out of your day to do that when you could probably be doing. Have you been trading today?
Yeah, I did a little bit this morning. I made about I was green for about $44 on the day, so nothing big, but at least I didn't lose anything. So that was good.
Plus today is the last Friday. Again, for you listeners out there, when you listen to this, it'll be well into the new year. But as of this recording, it's literally the last Friday of the entire year. Volume is atrocious right now.
Yeah.
So well done. $44 in a kind of a choppy market like this. I would say that that's a lot better than probably some people would have done. I mean, I'm sure some people didn't even find any trades at all. But given the context of things, good stuff. But we're getting way too far ahead of ourselves, and I blame myself. But let's start at the start. And I know you know what questions come in here. But where did all this start for you? I mean, where did you hear about the markets? And what ultimately got you interested enough in the markets to say, I want to get a little bit more hands-on with all of this?
Well, you had somebody on the podcast here, I don't know, a couple months back or 2-3 months back, something like that. And they made the statement that, when they were growing up, the stock market to them was just like a rich man's playground. And basically that was how I viewed it. I mean, he took the words right out of my mouth. Because I grew up in basically a blue collar family, and I mean, we weren't, dead broke by any means, but I mean, we, everybody in my family were either mechanics or welders or, truck drivers, just, blue collar jobs. And so I never looked at the stock market growing up as something that somebody like me could be involved in. I always thought it was, and of course I grew up in the 80s and 90s. And so that was just something that, rich people who lived in New York City, that's what they did, And I guess the first time that I really realized that, somebody like me could actually participate in the stock market. My first welding job, as a matter of fact, I was working in a factory. This was in 1997, 98. And they had the 401k. It had a 401k program. I was 19 years old when I started there. And anyway, back then, I mean, it was just, everything was just popping. I mean, you could throw a dart and hit a mutual fund and get above 20%, you know. Um, and so anyway, that was the first time I actually realized that somebody, like me could actually participate. But I really wasn't aware of um, uh, day trading or just trading in general. I mean, I'd be kind of become aware of like 401ks, mutual funds, things such as that. But and it's actually kind of funny because it wasn't until 2000 and let's see, 2006, and I think you'll probably get a kick out of this because I actually kind of got my eyes open to the market through a movie. And we were watching in 2006, I believe it was. We were watching Fun with Dick and Jane, and
Oh, I was trying to think. I'm like,
yeah,
2006. What? I was thinking Wall Street or with Charlie Sheen, but I was like, no, that was like back in the 80s or
yeah,
something when that came out. But there, that is funny. Funny. I've seen that. And there is a little stock market
right
stuff in
there
there,
is.
isn't
It's
there?
after he loses everything, and they begin to go through on their robbery spree or whatever you want to call it. And then, they have the birthday party for his little boy and they have the neighbors over and his neighbor asks him what he's been doing, since he lost his job. And, he's like, well, just, trading the markets, day trade the markets. And that actually caught my attention because I was like, you could actually make money day trading. But I thought, no, that can't be, it's Hollywood, so, but I mean, that's actually what kind of got the ball rolling in my mind as far as the stock market and stuff like that. But it wasn't until I think it was within just a few weeks of that. We were living in Georgia at the time, and I went to work in 2000, a couple years before this time. I went to work at a um, and you'll have to forgive me because I made notes and then I left them. I'm actually not doing this at my house. The kids are out of school and they're running around hollering and screaming. So
Oh, so mass chaos at your house too.
it
I
is. So I
understand. No
had to find a
problem.
quiet place where we could do this. But anyway, so I left my notes at home. But in 2004, I went to work at a four wheeler manufacturer in Georgia, welding on the frames. And I told my wife whenever I started working there, I said, the only thing that bothers me about this job is that we're making toys, and once the economy starts going down, that'll be one of the first things to go. And that thing that very thing ended up happening, just a few years from then. But anyway, in 2006, after I saw that movie, within just a couple weeks of that happening, I had a man come to work uh, for me there through a tip agency. And this fella seemed to be real out of place. I mean, he was, um, he didn't talk a whole lot. And matter of fact, I wouldn't know who he was if he walked in the door right now. But he just worked there for a couple weeks. But I got to talking to him one day, and he was going through a rough patch in his life. He's just going through a divorce, stuff like that. But he really seemed to be somebody that was out of place. He really seemed to be not well educated. Not somebody that would be coming to work through a temp agency. And so I began to talk to him, and he started opening up to me one day, and he told me that he'd been trading the markets before he came to work there. And I said, really? And so, I mean, that really grabbed my attention. So I began to ask him questions about it. And he was like, yeah, but you got to have a lot of money. I think, and I don't know how much he knew. I don't know, like I said, I only knew him for a couple of weeks, but he's like, yeah, you got to have you need to have at least $10,000 to get started and stuff like that. And I thought, well, I don't have $10,000 to get started in the stock market, but anyway, that between the movie and that right there, that really got the ball rolling in my mind as far as, is it possible to actually make money trading? Well,
That's one of the, that's One of the crazier stories we've gotten, because it is weird. First off, that's not necessarily the movie part, but that is a very random movie that sparked your intention. And then you sprinkle in the more randomness of some guy, like you said, you knew him for just a matter of a couple of weeks, and all of a sudden you kind of just added more, that piqued your interest. But yeah, that's quite the little journey. But what I found interesting is just from kind of a psychology perspective, it's amazing how several times you said, well, for somebody like me, meaning, just a blue collar, put on your hard hat, put on your boots, let's go sweat, let's go just get it done, which is awesome. I love the trades. I love people that get out there and hustle. But it's weird how the human mind is just how it almost, I don't know what the term is, but it just almost, you classify yourself in one sort of area of life, and then all of a sudden it like blocks you off from other areas, or makes you think that those other areas of life that's just, I mean, that's just not for me, and it's weird how the human mind does that. But I mean, I'm the same way, but I found it fascinating how that was really just, it really kind of threw you for a loop and misled you, in the sense of you thought for all that time you could never actually get involved in the markets, which is, as you know now, the total opposite.
Right. Yep, absolutely.
But
go ahead. So anyway, so I began to really, like I said, that really got me thinking about it. But I thought, well, it's according to what he was telling me, you got to have, so much money, and that was way more than I had at the time. And so I just kind of put it in the back of my mind, and went on from there. And then, of course, 2008 happened, and what I told my wife in 2004 had actually come to pass. Whenever we had the everything go down in the markets and the economy, and
the financial collapse, the real estate collapse, all that.
And we had actually, we went through a pretty rough patch ourselves. We had, I went from, in that job, our production had got cut by 2/3. And so we went from, I could basically, decide how many hours I wanted to work every week, to working every other week, and, working 1 week and being off a week, and working 1 week and being off a week. And so that didn't last very long. And so, between the economy and me not being very smart with my finances, we went through some rough patches ourselves. And I used to have a pastor in Georgia. He, one of his favorite sayings, and I think you'll like this if you've never heard it before. He would always say, if your outgo exceeds your income, the outcome becomes your downfall. And that's exactly what happened to us in 2008. But
I've never heard that saying, but nailed it.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And so anyway, through that, and there again, the markets had always been in the back of my mind, but we ended up moving from Georgia back down to Louisiana, where I'm from, and where my wife's family's from. And so then I got introduced to the industry that I'm in now.
Which is what? Pipe welding, right?
I got into pipe welding later. I was still welding structural at the time, but just welding in refineries and construction work in general. And when we were living in Georgia, my father-in-law was telling me, he said, "Look, you need to come down here," and of course back then, we were making, I don't know, $700-800 a week, $900 a week. It was average for us back then. And my father-in-law was telling me, you could come down here and make $2,500 a week. And I thought, no, there's absolutely no way. That's not possible. He's got to be wrong. And but anyway, I mean, but through that, I got introduced into the industry of construction work in the refineries and stuff like that. And so I did that for a couple of years. The markets are still there in the back.
Can I interrupt you real quick? I'm curious because I'm always, and this kind of bleeds with, I don't have enough money. How do I get more money to grow my trading account? And, and I know this, so this is me more towards talking to listeners, but, learn a trade. That's one of the best things I could recommend for people. So my question here is, when the economy did turn down, I realized that where you're working, and I love how earlier you said, right now we're just making toys. Right. So if the economy does roll over, this disposable income type products, such as what I'm making, is going to be first. So yeah, that makes sense why your production hours got cut and all that. But could you have, was there other opportunities out there had you pursued them a little quicker, or did you just stay with work 1 week, take 1 week off? Did you choose to do that, or were there still other opportunities out there within the trade of welding that you could have pursued during that economic downturn?
Not in the area where we lived. And of course,
okay, but let me specify. Bad question on my part. If you were willing to travel and leave the local area, where there are still other opportunities out there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's what we ended up doing. And the reason which actually, like I said, I didn't believe my father-in-law at first. And so actually we moved back down to Louisiana, and I actually went and got a CDL and started driving a truck for a little while. And so I did that for about 6 months. And then that's when I actually went into the construction industry. And so I did that for a couple of years.
But so was the $2,500 or give or take a week? Was that actually real?
That was very real. Yes, it was.
I love it. See, I'm Brad. I'm gonna remain calm here, but I just want to speak out to any of the people that maybe are carrying around a couple victim cards in their pockets. Here, and this was just so I don't speak. Was it still when the economy was kind of rough when you found that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So here we have a guy when the economy is rough. He went out there, he moved multiple states away, got a CDL, drove a truck for a little bit, and then picked up a job making $2,500. Let's just call it $2,000 because I agree. $2,500 a week, nobody's going to believe that. So we'll just call it $2,000. Although I know that I'm pretty familiar with the welding industry, but that's a whole nother discussion. But $2,000 a week in a bad economy.
Yeah,
you don't have a college degree, right?
Correct.
With no college degree. And here's a guy. Now, sure, I'm assuming that work got you a little dirty. I'm assuming that you had some wet substances form on your skin, otherwise known as sweat. I would assume that maybe you worked some longer hours.
Oh yeah.
But people, I'm sorry. Sometimes in life, the smartest way to go is not some paper that's hanging on your wall that says you got a master's degree in the theory of dance. Sometimes if you want to grow your trading account, if you just want to fix your finances, if you want to get yourself out of a tough spot, I don't know, go sweat, go get dirty. There's plenty of jobs out there because again, Brad, this context is during that economic crash from 2008. And the guy was willing to get dirty and was making $2,000 a week. That's good stuff, Brad. That's good stuff. I think my favorite part though is how you drove a truck. You got your CDL in order to drive a truck to fill that gap in between those two times. But sorry to cut you off, but that's good stuff there. I mean,
no.
It's one thing to say, well, you got to work hard if you want to be a trader. You got to have the hustler's mentality. But that's just a soundbite. Those are just empty words. Here we have a real life example of what a hustler's mentality looks like. So I don't even know. Oh, I know where you took the job. And then I think that's when I cut you off. So, I mean, you're making $2,000 a week, pick it back up from there.
Well, I did that for a couple of years through 2009 and 2010. And at the end of 2010, and there again, all this time trading was still in the back of my mind. And the bad thing about this is, I was making a lot of money, but I was traveling a lot and I was away from my wife. And at the time we had 3 sons. We have 4 now. But
you have 4 boys?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I have 1.
Yeah.
I don't even, how do you do it with, never mind. That's a whole nother, I'll have it on a parenting podcast if I ever start it. But 4 boys, holy smokes. Anyways, goodness.
Now you know why I had to find a quiet place to do this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I definitely do know.
But anyway, where was I at? Oh yeah. So anyway, I mean, the money was great, but being away from my family was very difficult. And so I ended up taking a local job back home, worked that for 5 years. But there again, the trading was always in the back of my mind. And I don't know why. I mean, I would maybe do a Google search on it every now and then. And then I never really did a YouTube search, and I really wouldn't find a whole lot of information. Everything would be vague and of course I did the usual searches. How much can you make day trading and stuff like that? And, I never believed all the pie in the sky stuff of, you can make $1 million a year and stuff like that. And not that, I'm some great person who's never going to fall for all the scams, but it's just, I'm a little bit older now, and I've seen the scams before. I thought when I was younger in my early 20s that I was going to get rich, selling life insurance. And then there was another time when I thought I was going to get rich selling vacuum cleaners. And so, I'd been through the scams before, and I knew what they looked like. And so, and a lot of times I would, when I would search that's the kind of stuff that would come up, and I would just be like, yeah, whatever. And so anyway, I worked that local job for about 5 years, and got promoted up. Started there as a welder, got promoted up. Was actually, before I left, the last 2 years I worked there, I was a manager at a manufacturing facility here in Louisiana, and hated it. I had 200 people that worked for me, and I hated to see the sun come up every day. I mean, just constantly stressed about something. And so I took it as long as I could take it, and I quit that job and went back working on the road. This was in 2016. And there again, trading was always in the back of my mind. And so anyway, I went back into the industry, but I was still welding structural. I wasn't welding pipe at the time. And welding structural, you can still make, you can make very good money, but the best money is in pipe. And so I thought, well, if I'm going to be in it, I want to make the best money I can make. And so even though
what kind of money are you talking about for listeners out there that maybe they don't know what they want to do in life? How do I get up myself a pay raise? I mean, unless you don't feel, I'm not asking how much you made, but
no,
on average, what sort of can pipe welders make?
On average, talking by the hour, as a structural welder, I was making probably about 34 an hour, working 710s, 712s whenever we work, and usually anywhere from, on the low end, $80 a day per diem to I've made as much as $110 a day per diem. So, and pipe welders, the job I'm at right now, currently I'm making 38 an hour. I've made as much as 48 on different jobs an hour welding pipe. But,
and there, where you work or where you have worked, are those places in search of welders? If somebody wanted to learn, if somebody wanted to show up on time, keep their mouth shut and listen, are places like that hiring for the trade, for the skill of welders?
They are. It is a difficult industry to get into, and it's almost one of those deals to where you have to know somebody. But if you do, they have Boilermakers, structural welders. I mean, there's all kind of different crafts, in the industry. But if you're a pipe welder, you can pretty much go anywhere, walk in the door, and get a job, because pipe welders are in high demand, and it's not a skill that a whole lot of people have anymore, and so and that was another reason why I wanted to get over to the pipe side, because that was in so much more demand than the structural side was.
See, there's no college degree. It's not like you're an economics major, but it sounds to me like you full well understand this whole college topic of supply versus demand, where there is a lack of supply, but demand, that's going to cause some good pay raises. Right. So Look at this. See, you don't need to go to college. You just need just a little bit of common sense. Brad, I hope we can become friends after this. I already kind of liked you from the chat room, but this is some good stuff. And like I said, for you, I can't get ahead in life. There you go, pipe welder. Yeah, you got to develop a skill. Yeah, you got to practice. Yeah, you got to, do a little hard work, but there you go. There's a way to make some. I guarantee you a pipe welder is going to make more than somebody with a master's degree in Roman dance theory. But so you got the job, you got the, you got the increase, and then that took you up to your, which brings about the other point. Managing 200 people, I can see how you'd be stressed out all the time. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. And that's, I was a manager there. I had 4 supervisors, that worked for me. I was responsible for 2 different shifts. And so I would be constantly getting text messages, emails all through the day, all through the night. I mean, I would wake up in the middle of the night and answer text messages and emails, and that just, like I said, I stayed there as long as I did because it kept me at home with my family. but I got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore. And, and even at that level, I mean, even at the level that I was at that job, I left there in 2015. In 2016, in the industry I'm in now, I made double that year what I made the previous year in my other job. So
That's that. There you go. That's how you make it rain,
yeah,
I guess. Well, or you make it spark since you're a
yeah,
welder. That's how you make it
yeah.
spark. All right. So where did trading actually come into play in the sense of, because very clearly, and I like how during all of this, it was always in the back of your mind. However, when did, I don't know if the Google searches picked up pace or the YouTube, but where did things really kind of jump into overdrive that kind of jump started, the trading for you?
Okay, well, I was back in this industry for about a year, and this was in around February of 2017. And I was working a job in Lake Charles, which was about 2 hours south of me, or 2 hours south of where I live. And in order, one, to save money, and two, just to be home every night, I drove it every day. And so anyway, I would get up probably 3 o'clock in the morning, get ready, drive down to Lake Charles, 2 hour drive, work my 10-hour shift, drive 2 hours home just to be able to, see my wife and kids for an hour, before I went to bed, and did it all again the next day. And that was uh, working 5 10s until the shutdown started. And then we would work 7 10s or 12s. And so I was driving to work one morning and just thinking, man, there's got to be a better way than this, to make a living. And so trading came back to mind again. And and so I thought, well, maybe I can find something on YouTube. And so I began to do YouTube searches on day trading. And I actually I didn't I didn't come across all the pie in the sky guys for some reason this time around. I'd actually come across, a few guys that were level headed. I didn't come across you yet. But anyway, I come across one in particular, and I don't know if I should say names on here or not. So I'll leave it at that. But I came across one in particular, and he seemed to be real down to earth. And so there again, what everybody searches for: how much money can you make day trading? And so one of the examples that he gave is, well, if you had, and I mean, if you had like $30,000, you could average $150 a day, day trading. And I thought, well, man, that's just, that's not going to cut it for me right there. And so, but I would watch other videos, and I began to get a little excited about it. And then I come across a stat that, well, 90% of traders fail. And I thought, well, what makes me think I'm going to be in that 10% that succeeds? And so there again, put it in the back of my mind. And this was in February of last year, up until, and I'll skip ahead a little bit to kind of get to the point. But in November of that year, I was working a job down in South Louisiana, and down closer to New Orleans. And I was we were working 5 days a week back then on that particular project we were on. And this was just before Thanksgiving of last year. And I was working with a real good friend of mine, and this was a Wednesday, and we had gone to church that evening. We rode to church that evening, and we were riding back. And he began to tell me, because I told him about, I'd looked into this trading stocks and stuff like that, day trading. And he said, I had an uncle that worked offshore, and said, he was doing that, and said in 5 months he made $100,000. Now, I don't know if he started with 90,000. I don't know if he started with 1,000. He might have started with 2,000 and brought it down to 100,000 in 5 months. I don't know. But here, finally, I have somebody that I know, that says, yeah, it's possible. He knows somebody that has done it. And so that kind of got me excited about it again. And so I did some more Google search, or some more YouTube searches, and found some other videos. Now, in the industry that I'm in, most people, most of the people that are in it have a camper. They pull a camper with them, because it's a whole lot cheaper than paying for hotel rooms every week. And at the time, which actually presently I still don't, but at the time I didn't have a truck that I could pull the kind of camper that I wanted with. So I was actually searching for trucks. And so I was sitting in my hotel room one night, a couple of nights after me and my friend had this conversation. And I was just, I was looking on YouTube for actually truck reviews. And I actually came across your video of when you bought your truck. And I was
that's hilarious. That's
I was
totally not wow.
Yep, I was not searching for trading videos at all. And so I clicked on it. I had my earbuds in, and so I just clicked on it, had it playing on my phone, I think, and then on my iPad I was, searching on Auto Trader for trucks. And so I'm just listening to your, in your vlog in the background, just kind of not really paying that much of attention, just looking on Auto Trader, searching for trucks. And so you're going through your whole process, and I would look over there and I would watch it for a little while and go back to what I was doing. And then you made the statement somewhere through there about what form of payment they would accept. And that caught my attention because I was like, this guy is about to pay cash for a truck. And so then I began to think, well, I wonder what he does. So I began to pay a little bit more attention to your video. And then it got down to the end of the video, and you said something like, well, I know this vlog didn't have anything to do with trading. And I about fell off of the hotel bed. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this guy's a trader.
I don't know, Brad. I think you're making all this stuff up. This sounds like Fun and Dick and Jane, some guy you only knew for 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden you're looking for a truck and you stumble upon, I don't know, man. This is getting a little sketchy here.
Oh, I promise. That's how it happened. But anyway, so after that, I began to, that was close to the weekend, I believe. And all weekend I did nothing but just watch every video I could come across of yours. And so then I really began to get excited about it, and so this was November of last year. Christmas was coming up. And so I thought, well, we're going to get through the holiday season, and I'm going to kind of watch this, pay attention to this a little bit more, keep watching the videos. And I think I even emailed you back then and told you that I was thinking about buying CTU after the beginning of the year. And so anyway, so we got through the holidays, and I'm watching all your stuff, watching all your stuff on YouTube. And so we get through the end of the year, start the new year. And I think it was somewhere time in February, I think, of this year when I actually, when I got CTU, but I say I bought CTU, I did, but I did do the payment plan. And, the reason I did that was because, I had the money to buy it outright, but in the industry that I'm in, you never know, you go on a job, the job may last 4 weeks, the job may last 3 months, and you don't always know when your next job is coming after that. And last year, the summertime through 2017 was extremely slow. And so I thought, well, I want to hold on to as much of my money as I can, so I'll just do the payments for right now. Cause I don't want to, after the job that I was on, I thought, well, I didn't know, how long it's going to be to my next job. And so that's why I did the payment plan. So anyway, so I was actually working in the Panhandle of Texas when I bought CTU, and so I went through robotic trading, and what else do you get on the first payment of CTU?
Robotic trading. Well, I'm trying to think, because their payment plan is different now than when you would have done it.
Okay,
but I think it was just robotic trading.
No,
back
it was
then. Maybe there's
it might have been robotic trading in the chat room.
Maybe skill sharpening too. Then
Maybe so.
Maybe so.
But anyway,
let me ask you this though, out of curiosity. Yeah. Going into CTU, for listeners, that stands for Clay Trader University, which is the big educational program that I offer. But my question to you, Brad, did you have any idea at all about technical analysis and the use of charts, or were you going into this totally blind?
No, I did not. Now, I'd learned a little bit, just from from the stuff that you have on YouTube and the stuff you have. But I mean, that was all I knew is what I learned from that.
And which you would now, I'm assuming you would agree with me when I say that stuff is all very, very surface deep, right?
Oh, it is. Yeah, it is. And
which is why, not to cut you off, but which is why, please, if you're a listener and you're like, oh yeah, I watch your free videos, I'm ready to trade. I promise you, I'm kind of a nice guy, but I'm not that nice. The stuff that's for free out there is just to give you an idea about my teaching style. Do you like the way I teach? Do you like the way I explain things? But from a practical trading perspective, it's very, very surface deep. If you want the nitty gritty details, that's where the Clay Trading University plan comes into play, which, as Brad just said, yeah, it's definitely surface deep stuff. So sure, you may understand some stuff, but like Brad said, and like I'm reinforcing here, don't take that and think you're ready to trade with real money, because it's very surface deep. So sorry to cut you off there, but I thought, that's probably an interesting and point that's worth mentioning. So you start off essentially blind and you start with robotic trading and pick it up from there.
Yeah. And so anyway, like I said, I was working in the panhandle of Texas at the time. And yeah, I mean, it was eye opening for sure. I mean, the information is out there. I mean, I would say every bit of information you need to know to trade is out there for free on the internet, but how to put that together, I mean, you will not get that for free. I mean, yeah, I mean, you could, you could take an engine apart and give it to somebody and say, somebody who's not a mechanic, and say, here, put this together. Well, they have all the parts in front of them, but they have no clue how to assemble it. And that's kind of the same thing with trading. Yeah, all the information is out there on the internet, but unless you have somebody to sit down and teach you in a structured manner, you have no idea what you're going to do with it, and you're just, you're going to make a mess of it before you make anything sensible out of it.
Yeah, no, that is a great analogy, and which brings up the point, and I'll just go with, because you absolutely nailed it. And and I have videos on this, but it's certainly worth talking about. To add on to Brad's analogy, Brad is also assuming that you've actually grabbed the proper pieces of information, because I assure you, there is all sorts of information out there in the vast sea of the internet that is really, really bad. Some of it is kind of bad, but unfortunately, kind of bad, a little bad, slightly bad is enough bad to still sink your ship in the world of trading. So knowing that, but even at Brad's point, let's just give you the benefit of the doubt that you are actually able to select all the good pieces of information from the internet, which I'm not going to call impossible, but highly, highly unlikely, because when you don't know what you don't know, how are you supposed to know what's actually good information? But again, we'll assume you're able to pull all the good information from the internet. But then we arrive at Brad's analogy here. Okay, you have all the good pieces from the internet. Okay, now what? Because if you start learning about A before learning about B, before learning about something else, you're just going to, like you said, I'm going to steal your word, Brad, you're just going to make a mess of it.
Right.
It's not going to turn out well. And there's a reason why failure rates are at 90%. I mean, a little common sense can go a long way here. If it was as easy as just using free information out there, I mean, wouldn't the logical thing to be, not that 100% of people succeed, but maybe 50% of people succeed, 25% of people succeed, 30%, but no. I mean, how is that? How is it that failure rates are at 90% when there's so much free stuff out there? Well, Brad nailed it, that even if you do have all the good information, yeah, it's all those engine parts. Yeah, and you still got to put those together.
Right.
But Brad, I know I keep cutting you off, but I blame you, because you keep leading me down these good, valuable rabbit holes, because you're absolutely right. It is eye-opening, and I'm not going to deny it. Everything that I teach, I mean, I put a little twist on some things, but yeah, the information I teach, yeah, you can probably find it out there on the internet, but I mean, finding it, structuring it, learning about it in the proper order, having somebody explain it to you in a way that you understand, that's where things get a little gray.
Right.
But anyways, Brad, like I said, I'm not even going to apologize for cutting you off, because you dragged me down this rabbit hole anyways. But so you were going through robotic trading in the panhandle of Texas, and your eyes were getting opened. And I think that's where you left off before it was your fault and I cut you off.
Well, it was funny, because once I got through robotic trading, it was almost like It was almost like on the Matrix when Neo gets shot and then he wakes up and he sees everything in code. It was like, oh, I understand it now. I can, I can see, I can understand what's going on. Not that I had not that I was an expert or anything, but yeah, I mean, the candlesticks made sense. The patterns made sense, different things like that. And it just kept me more excited, more interested, um, in, in trading and what was going on there. And so anyway, we get done with that job in Texas. I get laid off there. I came home for 4 weeks. And during that 4 weeks, now this is probably where you kind of jump on me a little bit, but I'd been paper trading and, and not really being realistic with it. And so I thought, well,
In what ways? Because that's an interesting whole. People, I mean,
well,
heck, today I was just having a conversation with somebody that's like, "Oh, I'm paper trading. I bought 200 shares of Tesla." I'm like, "So do you have that? Do you have an account when you go live where you could buy 200 shares of Tesla, which for viewers is like a $350 stock?"
right.
Well, no. I'm like, "Well, you're not being very realistic. Why are you practicing buying 200? Why are you practicing with an account that size when that's not actually reality?" But Brad, for you, what ways? In hindsight now, of course, at the time, you don't know this, but in hindsight, what ways were you being unrealistic?
Well, exactly that. I mean, that was, I remember one day I was off for about a 4 week period, from that job in Texas until my next job. And, during that time, that was when, Facebook was really, their stock was really going up. And there was one night where it gapped up like $8. And that was when it was up around 170, $180 a share. And so the next day I paper traded that, saying I'm buying 1,000 shares of Facebook, and there's absolutely no way that I would have.
That's a lot. That's a lot of dollar value of Facebook then.
It is. And so, yeah, just being unrealistic in my size and stuff like that. But, but, uh, but anyway, I thought, well, and two, I mean, I wasn't taking it very seriously as far as the paper trading. And so uh, here's my thought process behind what I did next, because I know you're not going to like what I did next. I thought, well, okay, I'm spending the money on education with CTU, thoroughly enjoying it. I have no problem with it. And here's what I did. I thought, I'm going to open a SureTrader account. I'm going to put $1,000 in it that I do not expect to get back. And my plan was to do that, trade it. Once if I get to the point where I've lost half of it, I will pull $500 out and be done with it. And that's what I did. So I went through the process. I opened a SureTrader account, and it took me about 2 weeks to lose half of that $1,000 that I put in there. And
for context sake, this is still, you've only gone through robotic trading, is that right?
By this time I've gone through robotic trading, skill sharpening, I think that may be it. May be it.
So in other words, you're getting way too far ahead of yourself, because
right.
To defend myself, I guess, a little bit, nowhere in the CTU were you told to go and do any of this. Is that accurate? You're kind of
that's correct.
You're going on Maverick here, right? You're just
right. Well,
okay.
here was my thinking behind that, because there again, I wasn't being realistic with the paper trading, and even then, I wasn't taking it very serious. And everybody talks about how the voices and everything else, whenever you actually get into a trade. And so, right or wrong, good or bad, whatever it may be, I wanted to see what that was like. And so that's why I did that. And to be honest with you, it made my paper trading, it made me a lot more serious on my paper trading. Now I did exactly what I planned to do. I put that $1,000 in. It took me about 2 weeks. I lost about half of it, and then I pulled the money out. And, but what it did do, it made me take paper trading a whole lot more serious. I got a lot more serious with, I got a lot more realistic with my size. I got a lot more serious about my entries. I would actually get nervous after I did that. I would actually get nervous paper trading, just, cause I didn't want to screw it up, and I wanted to be realistic with it. And so, in a sense, I would never do it again. But I guess in the way that I did it, I'm kind of happy I did. Um, and like I said,
mean,
I did.
honestly, the only problem I have, well, let me ask this question first. That $1,000, it was not like rent money. It was not like money for your kids to feed them or anything like that, right?
No, that's what I said. I put that $1,000 in there with the intent of I'm not going to see this money again.
Okay, I get it that the intent, you're not going to see it there, but
right.
And if you were to not see it there, that still wouldn't affect your personal finances, right?
Correct.
Okay, because Brad, I know that it sounds crazy, but trust me, I've seen it all. I can see some people expecting never to see it again, yet they actually still can't afford to lose it, yet they're still doing it.
Right.
There's some crazy human mind tricks out there. But all right, so going back to my point, now that I understand that context, really the only problem I have is you just did it too soon. You didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, you definitely should have been through, that level 2 course, the RVR trading course for sure, probably shorting for profit course. So you implemented it too soon. But as far as the logic, I mean, I don't have any problem with people putting money in what you did. I mean, because like I said, you could afford to lose it. It does bring out the voices. It does make you more serious. And it does kick things up a notch. The only thing was would you agree? You just simply got in too soon. You didn't take quite enough of the courses to gain the full framework, the full structure of, trade plans and all that. Is that kind of probably what ultimately tripped you up? Was you just didn't quite have all the knowledge that would have been needed now, talking in hindsight here?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I definitely, I wasn't ready, and which I didn't go into it thinking I was ready, but I mean, yeah, I did pull the trigger on it too soon. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's honestly, I mean, I would recommend if you can go and do what Brad did, the only difference being make sure you get far enough in, whatever educational program you're in. I mean, ideally, I'd like for that to be mine, but if it's somebody else's, that's cool too. But yeah, make sure you're not jumping in too soon because Brad's logic was great. I agree with all the logic. It was just the logistics that got in the way of a little too soon. But I like that. So after you traded with real money and then you started a paper trade, did I understand that right? That now all of a sudden the paper trading was making you a whole lot more nervous?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I began to take it a whole lot more serious. I began to, trade with a realistic size. I began to take it a lot more serious. Like I said, I mean, I would get nervous before, and I was just doing it with pen and paper, and I would get nervous, before I would, make my entries and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I mean, I took it a lot more serious. Absolutely. And so, anyway, as time goes on, I go on my next job, and
as
really
time goes on, how long, timeline wise, how long of a space of time are we looking at here?
Timeline wise, this was in April or May of this year, of 2018. I go on my next job. It's not a very long job. And then I think the information comes out for the Denver meetup. And that's when kind of all that came about with, I was supposed to be going on the job in Wyoming, and I looked at the schedule, and everything was going to kind of fall in line for me to go to the Denver meetup. And so anyway, all that kind of fell through. Just, this industry can change on a dime. And that's kind of what happened there. But anyway, I ended up going to the on that job in Wyoming, and I stayed up there for 3 months, which was the longest period of time I'd been away from home without getting home, at least for a weekend or a few days or something like that. And so from that standpoint, it was horrible. But I mean, it did give me a lot of time to take some more of the courses and do more paper trading. But I actually kind of began to get discouraged with it. And I'll tell you why.
And that wraps up part number 1 right here. I know. If you're listening to this live as they come out, you'll just have to wait another week. But we will be back next week with part number 2 of Brad, which will be episode 202. And like I said, it's only a week. But thank you, Brad, so far. I appreciate it. But before you go, As a listener, a final few things here. First off, if you're listening on YouTube, then make sure to check out the channel. There's a lot of other things on the channel itself. There's the YouTube, there's vlogs, there's quick tip videos, there's live trades. Brad talked about the whole truck thing and how he saw that video. That would be part of the vlog section of the channel. But point being, check it out. Hopefully you decide to ultimately subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on iTunes, then please leave us a rating. That really goes a long way. Also, be sure to subscribe so that you know when new content is released. And then finally, if you're listening at claytrader.com on the show notes page, then leave us a feedback, leave us suggestions, leave us anything you want. I suppose you can troll us if you want to, but we do pride ourselves in replying and getting interactive. So if you do reach out to us through the comment section or really any other means, social media, email, the chat box on the site, we will get back to you for sure. So check that out. And also hit the share button on the show notes page. So again, yeah, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. But I will see you back next week for part number 2.
This has been the Stock Trading Reality Podcast. Thanks for taking the time to hang out. To learn more about Clay and the Clay Trader community, including the trading team, premium training, and more, visit claytrader.com.